very, very warm.
I gotta get the lighter.
They're smoldering. There's a difference.
Alright, seriously though, I don't think it's alive.
Give me 1 sec. I'll take it down and put it back up.
No, we're not. No, we're not live yet.
Second time you lied to us.
Oh, now we are.
Lying. We are live right
We're
now.
live.
Yes, now we are. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TooGeekyToCare podcast and channel. This is the channel where all of us, we discuss our favorite topics and genres and everything that is so nerdy and geeky and how it reflects upon us and our society and our cultures in general. Last time, we spoke about zombies and how zombies were part of how they are present in many different aspects of the arts, and how it actually is a reflection of philosophy and our society in a way of what we're heading towards and our current ideologies and past ideologies. And with me today, once again, I am Tark201, and we have
Bushido X Wolf, and my name is Brandon, and I am the actual host here. But then we also have AJ, who's texting over there. Sorry, God.
AJ, who's not paying attention over there.
Sorry, God. Repeat your introduction. I interrupted you.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. AJ.
I'm trying to see if I'm live or
we're live. I can confirm this. I'm watching it. I got this.
Yeah.
It didn't show up on my phone. I apologize.
Fine. That's perfect.
I apologize. I am Bajuzitsu, or as everyone calls me, AJ.
All right, and tonight we are going to talk about something special. We're actually going to be talking about slashers and the genre in the arts, and a little bit of slashers in real life, and how our life's history of slashers, as in serial killers and killings in general, how that actually affected the arts and how the arts affected our society and vice versa. So I think it would be best to start off we should start with, when we hear the term slasher, what's the first thing that comes into everyone's mind?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah, that could be one. Totally.
No, I'm playing. I'm joking.
No. You know what? For me, it is definitely Scream. Every time I think of a slasher, I just think Scream movies. There you go. Right there.
I feel like it has to be anything suspenseful. Like, as long as it's suspenseful and it's centered around murdering or terrorizing individuals.
Anything knife related.
Knife related, because that's where slashing comes from.
Yes, exactly.
Every time I think of slashers, it's just like a whole bunch of kids getting killed. And when I mean kids, I'm talking about like
it is true.
high schoolers to like college kids.
Because after the first couple of movies, they realized that's who their audience was.
Yes.
That's who was going to the movie theaters, was high schoolers.
And that's who they want to scare the most, their audience.
I mean, I have a long history with slasher films. Like, goodness. But yeah, dude, like most of the slasher films now, they're like the main victims are either high schoolers,
yes,
college students, or young adults. And that's true. That's pretty much what it is. If like, I know my first slasher film, it was believe it or not, Psycho. And Psycho is considered a slasher film because we didn't know who the murderer was, but they were coming out with a knife. Zing, 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 doom, and the goodness.
I like that reenactment.
That's how it went, though, and it was just perfect.
Yeah, 60s horror in its glorious days.
But that was those 60s psycho film that I first saw with my pops. And I remember I was very, very young. I think it was like 4 or 5. And that was my first introduction to slasher films. Then it was Chucky. Chucky.
Child's Play.
How terrifying is it that you have a doll and you're watching a movie of a doll going around?
Yes, exactly. I was very into dolls as a child too, so
I'm gonna kill you, Andy.
You know
I'm
what's
gonna
even
kill
funnier
you.
is
terrified me.
I used to go to a barber shop where they had one hanging up by the door. So
Oh,
it was
no,
really creepy.
why?
I'd walk in and see it out of the corner of my eye smiling at me. I was like, what? Oh,
Oh,
it's fine. It's fine.
that's terrible.
Hi, I'm Chucky.
Oh my god, that's awful. See, I think that's where it started with the dolls being with dolls being scary in general. Because
I think so too, yeah.
when we were kids, we loved dolls. There was nothing scary about it. And then movies like that came out, and it was like, oh my god, imagine a freaking little doll going around trying to murder you. It's like the innocence.
Yeah, exactly. It was because dolls are innocent. They're a reflection of a child, and to use that to turn that into a slasher film, which is the doll going around killing people, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is not cool, man. But that was just like an amazing idea, and that was just terrifying in general because everyone had like dolls like that. I think Cabbage Patch Kids were like becoming a huge thing around the time, and they were already a huge thing. So can you imagine you buy like a 7-year-old here a Cabbage Patch Kid after watching Child's Play? Like how terrifying.
That's probably why I ended up liking smaller dolls like Barbies rather than the baby dolls, because the baby dolls freaked me out after a while. It's probably because of that movie.
Well, that happened, and then you watched Small Soldiers, and then you regret getting Barbies. So.
Yeah, Small Soldiers was a good one. I love that movie. But yeah, and then from Child's Play, which was a very, very amazing movie, went to a bit more surreal, supernatural-esque slasher, because there's so many different genres in the slasher film. Because you have your regular slashers like Freddy Voorhees, and then
Voorhees, wow.
Or Jason Voorhees. I was thinking of Freddy for some reason.
Close, half not,
It's because they did a movie together. That's
he was thinking the Jason versus Freddy thing.
Oh wow.
Jason Voorhees and your Michael Myers, right?
Yes.
But before that, if everyone knows the origin of Jason, the first Friday the 13th wasn't necessarily Jason.
Exactly.
It was Mrs. Voorhees, his mom.
Yes.
Ooh, spoiler! Spoiler alert!
They actually referenced that in the crossover.
Especially when you think about it, an older lady going around slashing.
Yes.
No one's innocent. No one.
But there's different genres to the slasher films, and one of them is the supernatural slasher. What am I saying? Well, the next person I was going to get into, which is why I ended up saying Freddy Voorhees. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, before we jump into the movies real quick, I would like to say what I think of the moment I hear slasher real quickly.
Oh, yes. You're right.
Thank you for forgetting about me. It's all good. The first thing that comes into my mind is, it's plain and simple. When I hear the word slasher, I just think about a man or a woman wielding a bladed weapon and just trying to murder somebody. And that actually originated, I'm not quite sure where the term really originated from, but I think it does have some sort of historic let's say events that took place to it, because even though we jumped a little bit into the horror films right now, when we talked about Child's Play and Friday the 13th and so on and so forth, it's interesting to note how all these horror films, that when it comes to slashers that we love so much, it actually has some sort of tie to a historic event or somebody that actually existed, a slasher, if you know what I mean. And so if we were to go back and just think about early slashers or serial killers back in the day, we can just easily think of, like, let's say, for example, Jack the Ripper and all that. Jack the Ripper and his Whitechapel murders of the 5 victims in the Whitechapel neighborhood, and those 5 different women. And I don't know if this has been proven to be true or not, but supposedly he was the very first serial killer to not only, well, yes, he wasn't the first serial killer to use a knife, but he was supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not, he was the first to use the victim's blood to write messages or to give clues out to law enforcement or anybody like that to say, oh, catch me if you can. And for many years, decades, we didn't know who he was until just recently, only a few years ago, we finally identified who he is. But without getting into detail about that, it's interesting to note how something like that just brings out just the art in general. It influences people to tell stories about that or tell similar tales just to get us invigorated, to scare us, because something like that historically happened, something that was so real, something that was so gruesome and we didn't see before, it could possibly, like, what if it could happen to you? Because it totally could. And you're lucky enough that it didn't if you were alive at that time. I highly doubt it, but let's just say if there was a killer out today, you're lucky enough to be alive if the sightings have been around you. And in the similar case of Jack the Ripper, there have been numerous of films that were inspired by Jack the Ripper or that have been based off of Jack the Ripper. One of the most early, because I like how we jumped into the horror film genre when it comes to slashers and all that. And I think the earliest that we spoke of right now was Psycho, thanks to AJ. But Psycho was directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And Hitchcock in the 1920s, he directed a silent film called The Lodger. The Lodger, the story of London fog. Now, this film, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but this film was actually was inspired by Jack the Ripper, where we have a young man was murdering all these different women around England. And since, Alfred Hitchcock, was an English director, he would just happen to put it in England and so on. And it was all about trying to discover who that killer is. And it was one of the earliest silent horror films and horror films in general outside of Nosferatu and all that. But when it comes in terms of slasher films, this was kind of like the one that kind of give us that macabre or that gothic sense of what a slasher film could or should look like. It was always so foggy, it was always so dark, and we never really see the killer's face. The killer was always hiding under his fedora or hiding in between his coat or something like that. It kind of like, I don't want to say set the standard because there were plenty more that came after that, but that was one of the ones that kind of gave everybody a glimpse of what slasher films could be like. And so moving on into modern day slasher films, where we were to take something along the lines of Psycho, a lot of people don't know that Psycho was actually inspired by a somewhat true story. And one of the most iconic stories was the one of Ed Gein. Is anybody familiar with the serial killer known as Ed Gein?
No.
Ed Gein, you are. What can you tell us about Ed Gein, AJ, so I don't talk too much?
I'm not too sure, and I know I've read his history back a while back when I actually did study the histories of the mass serial killers. If I'm correct, Ed Gein used to kidnap women. If I'm correct,
in a way,
he used to kidnap women, and he used to torture them and then kill them before. How would I say? I don't want to jump into it because I'm probably mixing up his story with someone else.
Apparently, he also collected corpses.
Yes.
In the graveyard.
Do you know what his choice of weapon was?
Butcher knife, I guess.
No.
No, okay.
His choice of weapon was a chainsaw. And when he was done with the victim, since he had some sort of skin disease, or that's what we believe, he actually ripped the faces off of some of his victims and wore them as masks. What does that kind of remind us of?
Psycho.
No. Exactly. That just goes to show you how much these these events of like real life happenings and real life like stories of murder and grisly violence just shapes these slasher films and just turn it into something entertaining and all that. Usually all these films, they come from something that happened or inspired by something in a similar fashion. And so moving back to slasher films, I think when we can talk about, you know, in relations to how we view them, it's interesting how all of us, we all said different things. But usually all of us mentioned somebody wielding a knife or something and killing somebody, whether it be through film or whether it be through real life and all that. But usually when it comes to slasher, that is one of the things that should come into mind, if not always come into mind. And it's one of those things where it gives us that mindset of, you know, what people are capable of and what people would and possibly could be doing.
I get you. I mean, one of the things that I've read upon about the whole slasher films is a lot of debate into what is a slasher film, right? Like,
at what point does it just become a horror, or?
Yeah, what would you? How would? Okay, like for example, Psycho. A lot of people don't consider that a slasher film. I do, because
I do as well.
Not only is because there's someone going around killing people with, as Tark had mentioned before, a bladed weapon, but there's a sense of mystery onto who and why is said person killing people who are staying in this hotel, right? That's the whole mystery of Psycho. The same thing with there's films where you know who the killer is. Why is the killer going around killing people? For example, Michael Myers. Why is Michael Myers going around killing all the teens, high schoolers in his area? Why is Freddy Krueger going around killing people in their sleeps? Mostly teenagers in Elm Street or that town, right? Why are people dressing up as Ghostface and killing people in this certain town? Those were the questions, like in most horror films or slasher flicks. And you know, to me, in order to have a slasher flick, you also have to have a good impression of a killer. That's one thing. Most slasher flicks, in my opinion, have an impressionable killer. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? For, like I just mentioned, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, you know, Chucky. The list goes on. There's plenty more.
I get you. There's just like something distinct about all of them, basically.
Yeah. Everyone is different, and they all have their motives. They all have their reasoning, right? Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface, etc., etc. They all have their own reasons for doing what they do, right? And they're all memorable in a sense. You go to any, like Tark just recently went to a horror convention. How many people were there dressed up as most of these characters that I just mentioned?
Not many.
Not many?
Surprise, surprise.
It's quite surprising.
I mean, with the horror ones, it's a little bit different. With Comic-Con, believe it or not, people do the horror film characters more often than the actual horror convention.
It's funny, at the HorrorCon, a lot of people were wearing stuff that you wouldn't imagine that they would be wearing. It's kind of like they're themselves, but they just like horrify themselves or something like that. And like some of the women, they wear a little bit of revealing outfits, and some of the men, they put, you know, makeup on their faces or on their bodies to make them look zombified or something like that. That is, you know, what we moved into and all that. But, you know, that's it.
It's just to like represent that everybody just goes for representing the tropes.
So in that sense, like Brandon said, in Comic-Con, there's a whole bunch of people that dress up as, I'm going to say, you see the mask, the hockey mask with blood. You see that, who you think of?
Exactly.
A hockey player?
Close. Close.
Okay,
It's a hockey
okay.
player that's doing his job. That's the secret. That's the secret. It's a hockey player that's really good at his job.
Okay, Tark. You say okay. Because we're definitely gonna ignore the fact that Freddy doesn't wear hockey.
Freddy?
No, I think of Jason. You're right. In a way.
Jason. I keep.
You keep saying it. It's funny.
If you see the
Oh, I
the
think it's
red,
Freddy on purpose. Sorry.
if you see the red and black striped sweater, you already know.
It's actually green.
I think it's like a
It's
dark
green and red.
Is it green and red?
It's green.
It's a dark
green and
green.
red?
It's like earthy color.
It looks blackish.
It does look black because it's dark.
Because the movie has like a dark,
It's a
macabre
very-
looking feel,
Yeah,
and
and
so
most settings in which he appears is nighttime, so
yes.
yeah.
So it would
I
like a
see.
lot of people when they watch Lord of the Rings, everybody thinks their cloaks are green, but it's actually gray because of the lighting.
Exactly.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so
Lighting changes everything. Even
okay,
moods.
okay. So you see that mask, you know who? You see that sweater, and you know who it is, or the
Exactly.
ghost face mask with the black.
That is so easy to get everywhere, though. That
Oh
one.
yeah.
Man.
Well,
It is-
everyone knows who that is.
Yes,
So,
and after you.
Go ahead, go ahead, Tark.
No, after you, AJ.
Everyone who sees that, they know. Oh, look, this guy is doing Scream. Ah, look at
I get
that.
you. Those are all iconic slashers.
They're all iconic slashers,
Yes.
but there are slashers that, although they're not as iconic as these characters, they also have their own thing, and they're all unique in a sense.
Yeah.
Like Hatchet. I don't know if you guys seen Hatchet. Tark saying yes. I don't know about these other guys, but
I had to read
Hatchet.
it in middle school.
So Hatchet. You won't tell me who the serial killer is. You probably don't remember his name, right?
That was a long time ago.
Right, but he runs around with a hatchet, and he's actually unique story. I recommend people to watch that. It's a very unique story. There's also Black Christmas. I don't know if you guys.
Oh.
I saw both versions. The the original one with Margot Kidder, and the remake with Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Okay, so also not a memorable character. You probably don't remember his name.
I don't remember his character either, actually.
Or her name.
Or her name. Oh.
Well, yeah, clue, hint for those who have seen Black Christmas.
I don't remember the name, though.
But you do remember that they have gas masks. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you remember the creepiness of the characters themselves.
Target's
gas
like, what?
mask? Gas mask?
Yeah, they have a gas mask.
In what movie?
Black Christmas.
No, I think you're talking about My Bloody Valentine.
That is My Bloody Valentine, you're right. Tark got me there, okay. Okay, My Bloody Valentine, there's another one. the gas mask. But there's plenty more. There's so many other slashers. Like there's the slasher genre. They all. That's one thing I have seen that they like. The slasher genre, although a lot of people try to cash in on it, they all bring a different sort of. And Tark even agrees. He knows where I'm going.
No, keep going.
They all bring something new to the genre. And I think that's one thing that's refreshing about the slasher genre is that although the majority of them deal with the same amount of people, like the same people, the young adults, the teenagers, dudes that are in college, they all deal with the whole shebang. But they all bring something different to the genre, and that's because, and this is my personal opinion, because of the times that are changing. If you guys don't know much about the slasher genre, they're all, again, the majority of them is like party kids, right? They're all trying to have fun. They all try to live their life, right? And then little by little, one goes missing.
But there's always the one, the pure person, the one that stays away from all those things in our culture that just views us or that objectifies us, and then that person's usually the one that gets away. But that was a long time ago.
Watched Cabin in the Woods. Someone has definitely watched Cabin in the Woods.
Although she's not pure, but pretty close.
I did. Cabin in the Woods, I thought that movie wasn't...
I liked it.
It was just really funny how it was just like justifying some of the tropes and everything.
It's a parody of slasher films and horror films in general.
Yes, it did what it was doing. What Scream did.
Horror films, or sorry to say, slasher films at the time. A lot of them that came after basically the main ones, like the Jason ones and stuff like that. Look. After that, I felt like they had a standard to uphold.
Yes.
And you can see it. Once they made Scream, you could see that they knew that already. So they were kind of making fun of it. They're just kind of like saying, this is the typical things that you'll see in slasher films. These are the things that will happen to you if you go against this, and that. Like Tark was saying, remaining pure and stuff like that. You know, like with the drinking, with the, being a virgin thing, all those things, they all tied into slasher films in a way, even if it was subtle. Yeah, you could see it in a lot of the movies, though, because, how are most of the couples killed? Exactly.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder, if I was in a horror movie, I would be one of the first people to die, so, no, I'm just kidding. But I like what you said about these iconic horror characters like Michael and Jason, so on and so forth. We recognize them when we see something that brings us to it. Even if I'm just watching, if I'm at a train station or whatever, and I see a girl wearing a sweater that is green and red, and it's during, like, let's say now, during the holidays, even though it's during the holidays, I'm gonna think of Freddy because of how much I love the character and how much of an impact it has made. But that also is a reflection upon, like, how history, when it comes to past murders and real events that happen, it's shaped into the entertainment world because that is how they view it, and then they wanted to make a story out of it, and then when they make a story out of it, it's shaped back into our society, and that is how we see it as. You know what I mean? So when, let's say, for example, back to Jack the Ripper did all the crap that he did. It inspired filmmakers became obsessed with it, and then whenever they see something that reminds them of Jack the Ripper, they instantly think about it, and then they make a film out of it. And after they make a film out of it, we will recognize what they did in the film because of how much that has impacted us. So it's like the real life event impacted Hollywood, Hollywood impacted us, and it's going right back and forth. And I love how we are talking about these slasher characters and all that, because I'm pretty sure all of us had some sort of experience with these slasher characters, and usually it's in form of film. We were majority of us, if not all of us, were exposed to it through film, because usually when we think of literature, when it comes to horror, we usually think of gothic horror. We think of something like, the Frankenstein monster or vampires or werewolves and so on and so forth, but we never really think of like a horror novel where somebody is like running around slashing people and killing people with a bladed weapon. And usually if that's the case, it's not necessarily in the same format of narration as slasher films. It's more in novel form. It's more like a mystery or a detective story. And so usually when it comes to our exposure to slashers, it's through films. And I wanted to move on to our next topic, even though we're currently on it, is what slasher films are the ones that stand out to us, and which is the ones that, we remember and really, really speak to us, even back then and to this day.
Well, yes, we'll go with Goth Angel because I know hers and I want her to say it. What's your favorite horror? What's your favorite scary movie?
What's your favorite slasher?
Well, when I was a kid, I really did like the Halloween movie. I did a lot. believe it or not, because my mom got me so into these films when I was a kid, and a lot of them haunted me, honestly. When I was a kid, I was just so scared to go to sleep. And then I think after a while, I think I started developing this fear for like slashers in general, because if you think about it, it actually is a really scary concept. A stranger being able to get into your house anytime he feels like it, being able to like either watch you sleep or anything like that, or be able to like just walk into your house, hide somewhere you would never see him, and then come out of nowhere and try to kill you. To me, these things were like real, you know? I was just into just the idea of someone being able to kill me with a knife, okay? And so when I was growing up, basically, like the supernatural movies and stuff like that didn't scare me nearly as much as slasher films did because of that reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, mainly it was Halloween when I was growing up, because that one did definitely scare me. I enjoyed basically the Scream movies, pretty much all of them, for the fact that they were more unique in their own way. You know, like they were defining what slashers were supposed to be. And they were like this ultimate like game changer for the slasher community. So to me, like, it was fun. It wasn't as scary. It was more like fun to figure out.
Yes.
Oh, who's the guy? Who's it gonna be now? You know, that stuff to me was very appealing growing up.
Oh yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Brandon, what's your favorite scary movie?
Slasher movie, you mean?
So going slightly out of the slasher movie area, but I feel like it deserves honorable mention because it's a little more modern. Is a movie called Untraceable.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you have seen it.
I have.
It sounds familiar.
It's a movie where basically the killer hooks somebody up to a machine, and that person will not die unless people start going to the website to watch them die.
Yes.
The higher the view count,
that's
the faster
when
that person dies.
Yes.
Now, if they got like a dozen views, nothing would happen. In fact, the first thing to die was like a cat. People would literally watch a cat where someone would pump in poison gas the more views it got. So people would get other people to come in and watch the movie to see if more gas would actually come in. And they watch the cat die, and they're like, whoa, that's crazy. And they're like, oh, they hook up a person now. It's like, no, there's no way the person would die. And they have a view count where the view count was directly correlated to something else. And it would just keep accelerating and accelerating. And eventually, as people kept tuning in, and more tuned in, because they'd be like, you have to see this person die.
Brandon, you're not going to believe this crap, man, that I found on the internet. Look at it.
No, there's no way. I have to see this. And you click on it. You're like, wow, me tuning in just made this person much more quickly die. I wonder if I can get other people to come in and then watch this person more quickly die. And it was just so horrible because the only reason these people died was because other people were just coming in to watch
because they were just so
fascinated
and so curious to see
people
if it was
just
true.
Wanted to watch them die. They didn't, like, half the time they didn't know anything about this person until the one time where they were like, look, this is a police officer. If you come into here, you're watching a police officer die, you're participating in a felony. And people were just coming in. People just didn't care. They wanted to watch this police officer die. And it was so terrible because as bad as the person was who hooked up this guy to the machine, what he did would have not killed the person if it wasn't for the millions of people who would just tune in to watch this person slowly die. And I think that, like, the worst part is during the movie they're trying to track this person down. They're trying to do everything they can to figure things out. But if you know anything about the internet, it can turn into a horrible mess. And it's so difficult to get around it. It's really crazy. So they hardly could ever find the person.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, that movie Untraceable, I didn't like it that much.
No, I don't blame you. I mean, it's not for everybody. But I really like the concept. The movie itself was okay.
It's one of those.
I feel like it's a play on morals, though, in my opinion.
Yes, it totally is.
So it wasn't for entertainment value. It was more like, okay, look at what society is today.
Yes.
Like they just want that shock factor.
Honestly,
they don't care who suffers for it. They're willing to like tune in and go, "Oh wow, this is crazy."
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I liked about the movie.
And there's plenty of movies that are like that, where it's like a look at.
Yeah, there's a couple other movies that followed behind it, but that was one of the bigger and more mainstream ones, I guess. But that was one of the ones I felt needed to be mentioned, just because like that had its purpose, and that did what it did. It had a unique idea, and I liked it. It was the fact that people were killing other people for their entertainment by just showing up.
Yes.
Other than that, though, when I was younger, I really liked the Jason movies and the Freddy movies, just because the Halloween ones were too. Just because to me it was the most terrifying thing about Jason and Mike were that no matter what anyone did, they were basically this unstoppable force, and it was this like it was a terror. And the sheer terror of it was just that you have this unstoppable force slowly moving towards you, and there is nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is try to like hope to contain it, but most of the time, everyone's reaction is no. We have to destroy it. We have to kill it, and that just never worked out.
It just never works. Yeah,
it just never worked out. It's just so funny to see how people panic horribly at the idea of an unstoppable force, or like Freddy, who's this intangible force, this force that you can't do anything about, that you can't avoid because you can't avoid sleeping. It's not like it's it's not like you can say okay, well, unlike with Jason and Michael Myers, where you can avoid them, like go away or go somewhere else.
It's like you're not even safe in your own dreams. So
you can't sleep.
What is this?
And
that was definitely a unique idea for a movie, I gotta admit.
And
that's why it scared me so much.
Rest in peace, Wes Craven.
One of them, my uncle actually, because he knew I was terrified of him, he was like, okay, you have to see at least this part. He would play I think it was towards the end of the movie, one of the characters figures out a way to pull Freddy out.
Yes.
From the dream world. You know what
Nancy.
So, and he was just like, okay, you're absolutely terrified of this force now. Because he's just like, all right, now I'm going to jump to this part of the movie. I want you to see what happens. And he shows me, and I was just like, oh, that's so much better. I was like, exactly. So he was like, exactly, see as much terror as there is in a concept like this. Because at that point, I was just like, I don't know if I want to sleep anymore. But as much terror as there was in a concept like that, he was like, there's always something that can be done.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Tark. What about you?
What about me? What?
What's your favorite slasher movie?
Oof. My favorite slasher film, as simple as it may sound, it probably might have to be Halloween. As simple as it may sound, it's going to be Halloween. Not only because it just started all the horror tropes and the slasher tropes that, Goth and Brandon was talking about, but there's actually more to it than meets the eye, and it's, to this day, it's still terrifying. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to watch, and there's so many ways you can actually interpret this film. Even if I were to watch it today, I will see it differently from the last time I watched it. And I don't know whether this was John Carpenter's intention or not, but there are multiple ways you can actually watch this film. Some people saw it as like a sexual revolution film. Some people saw it as a purity film, and some people saw it as a reflection of American culture, and so on and so forth. There are so many different ways you can actually view this film. And not only so if we were to look at, from the entertainment side, I liked it. It was actually very entertaining. It was actually super scary. And I don't know if you guys, I'm pretty sure all of us have seen Halloween. The soundtrack composed by Carpenter himself.
It's so classic.
Oh, yeah.
You'll remember for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah, like that. I mean, the last horror movie I saw to this day, where the soundtrack actually made me like, oh my gosh, this soundtrack is so freaking good, was It Follows. That was the last horror movie soundtrack. I was like, oh my gosh.
It's pretty good, actually.
It was very good, and the soundtrack by Disaster Piece, where it follows, it will blow your. If you hate the movie, it follows like that movie is like kind of divided and all that. But if you hate it, you will like the soundtrack. That is the one thing you're gonna walk away from. Okay, I did not like the movie, but I did like the soundtrack. It's one of those.
Soundtrack's good though.
Yeah, the soundtrack was something else. So yes, Halloween is my favorite, and I think that was not only my first slasher film, but that was actually my first horror film that I've seen and all that. Yeah, and I told John Carpenter when I met him one time at Comic-Con, I told him that was the first horror film I saw, and he was like, "Oh wow."
You know, it's funny when you're mentioning like the different ways you can view the film and stuff like that. I was thinking about how at one point when I was rewatching one of them, I think they delve a lot more into his backstory in one of them.
Oh man,
six.
Yeah,
it was one of the more recent ones. But so when I was watching that one again, and I was watching everything that happened, I was just like, you know what? As horrible as everything is that's happening, every time he stabs somebody, I'm just like, poor Mike. He's just killing people. I'm like, oh my God. Poor Mike. I feel so bad for Mike. And meanwhile, all you hear is from screaming and everything. I'm just like, poor Mike.
And what about you?
He just wanted a hug, man.
Isn't it strange though when you have to feel bad for the serial killer rather than the freaking like innocent people? Innocent people. I don't know. Sometimes you're not that innocent.
Mike wanted bad stuff to not happen, and bad stuff kept happening, so he had to do bad stuff to make the bad stuff go away.
Yeah, okay. But besides Halloween, I really like Scream, the first one, and Scream because, like what God said.
I don't know if you guys remember this actually. In Scream, they actually made a reference to Freddy.
Yes, of course.
There's
I know he was kind of in the background though, so I'm not sure if anyone else noticed it.
Yes,
but I thought it was hilarious.
There were two.
Like I recently watched it, and then I was like, why?
There was where we have Wes Craven, the director Wes Craven himself. He was dressed up in Freddy's outfit.
He was the janitor.
Yes, and that was Wes Craven, and he says it was intentional, obviously. And the other reference was in the very beginning with Casey, played by Drew Barrymore, where the killer on the phone was like, asking about what their favorite horror film was, and then he asked Drew Barrymore to guess, and Drew Barrymore was like, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then he was like, is that the one where the guys had knives for fingers? And he was like, yeah, Freddy Krueger. Oh yeah, Freddy. That movie was so scary. She said, now the next line, what she said was actually controversial, and is actually very interesting to analyze, when she said, yeah, the first one was, but the rest sucked. That's what she said. Now that one is very interesting to note because it's showing us how a lot of people in today's day and age, how we view the horror movie trope and how we go upon with sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel, because the thing that made Scream so stand out for me, not only was it like really funny and really like I love the killer and I love the style and the story and I love how it's a murder mystery as well, I just like how it's a complete homage to not only slasher films but horror movies and movies in general. And it was a complete it reminded us about all the things, like what you said, Goth. It reminded us about all the things about horror films back in the day that we liked so much that we departed from. Because when Scream, the first one, came out in 1996, we already received constant sequels from many slasher films, and we were starting to get tired of it. Yeah. They were going way too deep into the backstory of all these characters and all these different, bad guys that nobody cared about, because it was making them less and less scary. Because similar to what Brandon said about an unstoppable force. So it's almost like we take, for Michael Myers, for example, if you were to just watch the first movie on its own, Michael Myers is killing these teenagers just because, and the reason why he cannot be stopped is because maybe, just maybe, he might be evil incarnate. And then if we were to watch the other films later on, it is implied, they explain, the reason why he cannot be stopped is because he is part of a curse and all that stuff, and the reason why he's going after these kids, he's mostly after Jamie Lee Curtis, is because that's his sister. And we're like, we didn't need to, that's cool, but I don't think we needed to know that.
Yeah, they at the same time they
humanize them. It's like, why though?
It's the same with all the other guys too, like Freddy. Same with Jason.
Yes,
you had all these
backstories.
They had all the backstories and all these stuff, but it kind of wore down on people because now it was
takes
just
out the illusion that they're just serial killers.
yeah.
You know?
It makes it makes them like it humanized them.
Yes, and you're like, no, I wanted you to be horrible beast. You know? I wanted you to be this inhuman thing because you were so inhuman in the freaking story. Like, look at you, you were pretty much unstoppable. And then when you like bring in their backstory, it's like saying, oh, well, they were a human once, you know? It's like they had feelings too. This happened to them, bad stuff, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, we didn't even know that though. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand what Target's saying, and I think that's what's missing right now with the slasher films, is that when Scream came out, it was something fresh.
Definitely.
It was completely fresh. It was something new. It poked fun of the slasher cliches as well. So it was like, it was something, and it's missing now because you see it
like, hey, we're a slasher film inside of a slasher film, haha, you know?
and it's missing now because guess what? Just recently we've had remakes of all these characters, and guess what? They weren't successful. They weren't. I love Freddy. And I'm getting into my topic now, so I'm sorry, Tark.
No, do you think?
I love Freddy. Freddy was the one that terrified me the most. As Brandon said, you watch this movie and you see this guy killing people in their sleep, and you're like, God damn it, I have to go to sleep soon. What the fuck?
You always watched it at night too. I don't know if you were a kid, you watched movies.
Of course,
I did.
Of course. And the scene that got me, the scene that got me the most of Friday the 13th was the very first kill, where he grabs the girl and she starts flying in the air.
You mean Nightmare on Elm Street? Because you said Friday the 13th, and I was thinking, okay, so
I'm in a bad moment today. Okay, I'm not on a roll, but yes, Nightmare on Elm Street.
When he killed.
My favorite was the hockey mask, Freddy's.
When Freddy had the hockey.
Oh God, it doesn't stop.
But yes, your favorite moment was when he killed Tina.
No, the scariest moment, yes, Tina, when he levitates her, and she's like, ah, and she's getting cut, and her shirt opens, and I was like, oh my gosh, what the freak am I watching right now? And I'm like 5 years old. This was the first Freddy I had seen, and it was terrifying. And then poor Johnny Depp. He deserves it now, but poor Johnny Depp. Man, that movie had me. I'm not gonna even curse, but I want to say it so bad. It had me uneased, and my dad would be like, "Oh yeah, time to go to bed." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, I used to hate when my mom would tell me to go to bed right after watching the scariest thing ever. I was like, no, I just watched freaking, like, Freddy Krueger go into people's dreams and murder them all. Like, this is not, no, it's not okay.
Yeah, it's not okay. You just saw, we just
watch cartoons.
We just saw this guy all burnt up, killing people in their sleeps, and you're telling me to go to sleep? What the hell is wrong with you?
There's nothing appealing about his personality or his face, okay?
But that was me at 5, and then later on I realized that the story of Freddy was even more terrifying than what it was. He was a pedophile that was burned by the town.
For me, knowing his story was a good thing and a bad thing. It made him more disturbing.
Yes, it made him
in a sense, it was a good thing that we knew his backstory.
It was more disturbing. No, but this was mentioned in the very first Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
though.
was he? Wait, was he?
I mean,
Nightmare. Was he a pedophile or an accused pedophile?
No. He was considered pedophile in the remake, but in the original timeline, he was not. He was only considered a murderer, a child murderer.
He was accused of murderer. Yeah, child murderer.
Pedophile. He was a child murderer. He wasn't accused. He really did it.
Okay.
Yeah, accused pedophile as well. So.
And then the second one is when
Not really. For the pedophile part, that was only for the remake. For the original, they didn't say much.
Remake. There we go. Remake, that's when they added that in, which didn't help.
And also for his backstory, we do not know Freddy's father because his mom was the nun and she was raped by so many different men.
Yeah.
That was revealed in part 5.
Horrible things.
I didn't like part 5, but whatever. We got it.
But at least you get some more in depth, I guess. So.
One of the things I had learned about Nightmare on Elm Street, there we go, Nightmare on Elm Street, was that you would have to skip all the even numbers. Because all the even ones were not the good ones.
I like part 4. Part 4 was my favorite out of the Dream Warriors trilogy.
Nah, I didn't like it.
Okay.
I like the third one.
Yes, the third one's my second favorite out of all of them.
I like the third one. So, and then New Nightmare was really good too.
Yes, that one was also very good, and that was the one where Wes Craven was involved once again.
Yep. So, Friday the 13th also was one of the ones that I got introduced to later on. And it was, again, one of those movies that I was surprised because I knew he was so iconic, the hockey mask and everything. But when I saw the first one, poor Kevin Bacon, I was quite surprised to find out that the murderer was not the hockey mask fiend. And so I was like, whoa, how'd you get the hockey mask guy then? You know, I think that was the bigger question to me going into Friday the 13th, like after the first one. How'd you get the hockey mask guy? How'd you develop this massive machete wielding hockey mask killer?
The cult, yeah. How did the cult character just emerge from something where you wouldn't imagine it would emerge from, or you wouldn't imagine he or she would make an appearance?
And it was quite interesting
because you're like he or she.
He or she.
Trying to not give anything away.
Oh yeah.
And it was interesting. It was very interesting. I dove into Friday the 13th, and that's another trilogy that I enjoyed. Even though watching it now, it's very, very, it's entertaining for all the wrong reasons because it's just like, this is too cheesy now. But I guess
back watching it though, it gives me like that nostalgia, you know, of when I was a kid and so thing.
But
the movie is feeling bigger than itself, you know.
And I enjoyed that, and I would watch those with my father. But my dad, since my cinema has always been with my father from growing up, from really young. And my father loved Chucky. And I'm talking about he had all the VHS Chucky movies.
Exactly.
Later on, it was all the DVD Chucky movies. And when my mom and my dad split, before that, we huge on Chucky. We would love Chucky, and we would watch like The Bride of Chucky, and then anything else afterwards. We were huge on Chucky, and Child's Play has always been one of my absolute favorites. So those three I loved. I loved Halloween, I'm not gonna lie, because of what Tark said. The music was phenomenal. When you hear that score, you know, even in the piano, I actually learned how to do. It's just iconic music. Same with Friday the 13th. You know.
The AJ covers.
I know. Oh man, I'm on fire right now. And
God.
But you know, I know everyone here is a huge fan of Scream. I only like the first one.
That's fine.
I didn't like the series in general. Like I saw the second one. I thought the second one I was let down. Then the third one, I was just like, why am I watching this anymore? And even to this day, I think the fourth one came out. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I heard they're trying to make like a fifth one, or
That was the plan. The Scream 4 was supposed to be the first of a new trilogy, but after the death of Wes Craven, even Weinstein just came out and said, yeah, part 5 and 6 doesn't look like it's going to happen anymore. And he argues that the TV show might be the only thing that we're going to get for a while.
I mean, it makes sense. I've seen the TV show. It's not that bad. But again, it's something that I like. A lot of reminiscent to like what I saw in 2 and 3, and I'm just like, I can't really get into it.
That's kind of what they were going for, though. When
right?
they made the first season, especially, they were going for, all right, we want to bring you into the feel of how the movie was.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. They basically threw you in there as if it was a movie.
So that's why I couldn't really get into that.
It makes sense, because if you didn't like Scream itself, then you weren't going to like Scream the TV show.
No, I like the first one. Don't get me wrong. I love the first one. I thought the first one was executed phenomenally. Like, I thought the whole mystery of who's the killer, why are they targeting Sydney, why do they talk about her mom and all this other stuff, it was very interesting. It was very unique. And I thought, again, it was a fresh introduction, a reintroduction of the slasher genre. And I think that's what we're missing now. We need another iconic character to, bring back that slasher genre. Because right now, the horror genre itself, I'm not a huge fan of it. And you're probably like, what? What are you talking about? Like, this is nonsense. I'm not a fan of this whole paranormal stuff. I heavily dislike paranormal stuff. It's just, it doesn't scare me.
In general, it's too bland.
You guys just didn't find the right ghost stories to watch.
Yeah, I don't. I think they overplay it. That's the point. I pass it off as natural. Like, this is a real story, guys.
But no, I know what you guys are saying when it comes to, like, nowadays we're moving into the day and age where a lot of things likes to be found footage. A lot of things like to be more talking about hauntings and ghosts, and
no,
I think
I can't say that, because one of my favorite horror films of all time is the Blair Witch Project. And the Blair Witch Project is a found footage movie.
Yes.
Right? But what we're seeing now is, again, there's lack of originality in the sense that every movie is like, every paranormal movie is basing itself off of Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
And it's sad because I wasn't a huge fan of Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
So if I personally didn't enjoy Paranormal Activity, then all these other movies that are kind of like Paranormal Activity, I will not enjoy. And it sucks because I truly do love the horror genre. Like, I grew up on these films with my father. Like, we can go back to the like back then we were just talking about this in our last podcast, the zombie films. We can go back and talk about vampires and werewolves. But to me, there's a lack of originality in the horror genre, and it's because right now a lot of people do enjoy the paranormal genre of horror. Sucks. There's some movies that have been really good, but that they haven't had the exposure of said paranormal movies. For example, you just mentioned one, It Follows. I enjoyed It Follows. It was a really, really good movie for it not having as much of an exposure as, say, what's this movie called? The Conjuring, which I did not enjoy myself. I thought it relied heavily on jump scares, and I hate jump scares because I don't get scared of jump scares. It's really stupid. It's irritating, and it's a cheap way to scare people. What scares people is something that hits so close to home. For example, you have a doll. Something so innocent, and yes, that big tree's gonna kill you. I know that's a Lord of the Rings tree.
That's an ent.
say.
It's not a tree. It's an ent.
I know it's an ent.
You know,
Looks like a tree.
I forgot where I got the name from, but I just love calling every tree and every ent that moves is Treebeard.
See, like, for example,
they're all Treebeard. All of them. Even Groot is Treebeard.
For example, they're mentioning movies that I do enjoy, like The Shining. The Shining was great. I love The Shining. I also liked the first Amityville Horror. That was a good one. But again, there's a lack of originality in our films, especially the slasher films. What are we getting right now? We're gonna get another remake of a Friday the 13th.
Yes.
We just recently had a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, which tanked. Was terrible.
That was like 6 years ago, man.
That was like 3
Recent
years
enough.
ago.
No, it was 6 years ago, actually. It came out in 2010.
Well, they can't make another one.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It's too soon.
Which sucks because I like Haley. What's his name? The guy who played Freddy. Such a great actor.
The point though, with remakes.
Jackie Earl Holly.
Haley or Holly, yeah.
Usually speaking,
I knew it was Haley.
We're always gonna like the original. That's
it's
my
not that though. It's not that.
The originals are usually better because a lot of things that come into play is basically that's our childhood.
I can't say that though. Okay, like, when you talk about horror films, there's a lot of them, and we can go into the like horror topic in general. But I hated the Friday the 13th remake so much.
I actually did like it. Friday the 13th, I liked it. Nightmare on Elm Street, I didn't.
The Nightmare on Elm Street remake was terrible. I hated the Halloween remake.
Are you waiting for my reaction? I didn't like the Rob Zombie one either.
Okay then. But there are like there are some rehashes that are good. For example, the Chucky movie, the last Chucky movie that came out.
Curse of Chucky.
The Curse of Chucky. I thought that was really clever and unique, and I enjoyed the story. I thought it was really good. I liked it. It felt like a Chucky movie. It felt like a Child's Play movie, and it was. I liked how they brought back the tension of Chucky. They brought back the atmosphere of the Child's Play films, and that's one thing that I don't understand why companies can't get to that basic again. There's one film that I consider it a slasher film, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys did, but it's called You're Next.
Yes, I like that too.
Right? If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's really good.
It was. But this, no, you keep going.
I'll look it up.
It has the elements of a slasher film. And it really comes close to what a slasher film is. I don't know if it is categorized as a slasher film because if you watch it, you'll see like why I'm hesitant to put it as a slasher. But I enjoyed it. I truly did, and that's something. If that wasn't a slasher film, that's what you can build yourself off of in a slasher film because it was really, really unique. It brought back everything that I enjoyed of slasher films, plus it added more. So, there's again lack of creativity in the slasher films. Like in slasher films, that's one thing I would love to see again in cinemas.
Yeah, I think that if they did do some of the same concepts, because a slasher film is a slasher film for a reason, but I think that what they need to do for creativity purposes is add in more newer ideas within that community of slashers,
But
something
but you can't.
I don't know, suspenseful.
But here's the thing, you could, and I think that's one thing that again it's lacking. There's a lack of creativity. What is the last slasher film to date that you can think of?
I can think of like a dozen.
Right now. Name one.
I'm horrible with newer titles, actually.
Name one, Tark. Since Tark is a huge movie buff, I want to see what he comes out.
Slasher film?
Yes.
The Strangers.
Okay. I've seen it, yes. Okay, how long ago was that? How long ago was that?
That was like in the last decade, from like the mid 2000s, I think. But if you want a slasher film in like this decade, that I would probably have to say Maniac, the one with Elijah Wood. That one was really nice, and the reason why that was very nice was because it added that delicate reminder of the psychological aspect when it comes to horror, similar to like a Hitchcock film or similar to Silence of the Lambs. And I like what we were talking about when it comes to where we are at when it comes to the slasher and the horror genre in terms of films and all that, where we're at right now. We just have these constant remakes and constant reboots and all that, and not all of them are really good. I can tell you some remakes I thought were pretty good, almost as good as the original, almost, and all that, but a lot of them, they are missing something. And it just so happens that when we were talking about, you know, when you mentioned you know, the paranormal, and after that everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon, that is what happens. Like when Scream came out, everybody wanted to be like Scream. We got the freaking urban legend slasher movie. I don't know if any of you guys seen it. If you guys haven't seen it, that's okay. If you guys have or haven't seen it, I don't blame you, because that movie not that good. But anyway, we had that, and we also had I Know What You Did Last Summer. Basically that movie was a response to Scream. Everybody wanted to be like Scream. When Blair Witch Project came out, everybody wanted to be like Blair Witch Project. We had all these found footage films that came out and that are still technically coming out. And then when Paranormal Activity came out, everybody wanted to be like Paranormal Activity. We saw all types of found footage films. And when we had when Saw came out, same thing. Everybody wanted to ride the bandwagon of Saw. Everybody wanted to ride that bandwagon of torture porn. Everybody wanted to be Hostel. Everybody wanted to be like the next bloody Eli Roth film or something like that. And so that is just what happens when we have that one film. Yes, it's a trend. It's that trend that will just keep on riding. And that also happened with Halloween. All these horror characters that we love to talk about, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, all these different films, they all usually are a response to Halloween. When Halloween came out, everybody wanted to be it. And look what happened. It got us Nightmare on Elm Street, it got us Friday the 13th, and look how much we love those. Yeah. But when we were to compare Saw to something like Hostel, that's not going to work, because even though they're both technically torture porn films, one of them had like a different concept, and one of them had like a different style of writing and different messages and morals. Because that's another thing that I think we kind of missed upon during this talk, was that horror back then and a little bit today, they all used to be metaphor for something. But basically, nowadays, we're moving in towards like the phase, I would like to say the trend that we're in right now when it comes to horror. We do not see many found footage films right now. The last found footage film that we saw was Blair Witch, but once again, that was just a play on for Blair Witch Project, which I personally thought Blair Witch was pretty good. I don't know if you guys have seen it already.
I liked Blair Witch.
I liked it as well. It had the
same atmosphere and the whole thing, the whole shebang of Blair Witch Project. Yes, it got a lot of the mixed reviews, but those who heavily enjoyed the Blair Witch Project heavily enjoyed Blair Witch.
Yes, Blair Witch reminded us about what found footage films used to be. It wasn't always about the ghost, and it wasn't always about, you know, exorcisms. Yeah, and that's another thing. We're moving into like the exorcism phase and all that. And all that, you know what I mean?
I personally never really liked those kind of movies.
I mean, I understand some of the other movies, like what was the one I saw with my friend? It was actually pretty good, because it wasn't
Exorcism of Emily Rose.
No, it wasn't
the last Exorcism.
Oh. Shoot, it was about it was along the same lines, about spirits possessing people. One of them was Insidious. There we go. Okay. The second one, where the main character has actually been switched out for a spirit, and for a while you're thinking like, okay, so what is going on with this guy? Why is he like slowly rotting from the inside out, it seems like? And then you find out that he's been possessed. It's not actually the main character at all. But it was a really cool movie I thought for that reason. But other than that, though, a lot of other ones were doing really, really weird stuff where they're like, "Oh, this person's possessed. We need to exorcise them." In this case, it was the person's possessed. Now, his actual soul is trying to force himself back into his body and stuff like that, instead of trying to do the other way around, where somebody else tries to free him or whatever the case might be.
So that's
again, the whole. I'm not huge on the whole exorcism thing either. Again, all trying to square off of probably the very first exorcism movie that was mainstream, The Exorcist.
Yeah, but everything has to start somewhere. Just like
of course,
all the slasher films start somewhere, and then everyone wanted to do it. So it's the same thing with the paranormal experiences like that. Everything has to start from one movie and then branch out pretty much.
I mean, but there's a difference though. See, like
the
thing is, like I understand like where Tark's coming from. The horror movie, like you have your trends, but I'm pretty sure if you pull out a unique character, and that's what it is. It's if you can pull out a unique character in the slasher films.
Well, yeah, it's not copy paste. They did get creative with it.
Cause they all the characters right now, like okay, again, like I asked Tark, what was the last mainstream slasher film that has come out? And he said The Strangers. That was like last year.
No.
I mean, not last year, like last decade. Dude.
Another mainstream was in You're Next. That was another mainstream one.
Yeah.
You're Next. Again, I'm still iffy on putting that on the slasher films though, but you have to watch it to understand why I'm iffy. But again, those movies, they again, slasher films, they had the atmosphere there. It was and I think The Strangers is coming out with a sequel.
Yes, they are, but that's not coming out for like who knows when though.
It just recently got announced for next year, 2017.
Well, that'll be good.
Yeah, along with like the new Friday the 13th.
Yes, but moving back to what we were talking about earlier with chat and so on, when it comes to like this new trope and all that other stuff, everybody wants to follow that bandwagon. Everybody wants to follow that trend. And now where we're at, this trend that we're at when it comes to horror and all that stuff, it's usually the ones that are more psychological and the ones that are not really mainstream are the ones that stand out. Like if you were to ask me, and I told Goth earlier this year, we were talking about, you know, what's our favorite horror films of this decade and all that, you know, from 2010 to now. And I said, oh, I love It Follows. I love Under the Skin. I love A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I love The Witch and all that. And all these films, they all have something in common. And the thing that they have in common is it is not mainstream, or it's usually independent. What is going on with all these independent or all these little known films that are the ones that are stealing the show, but not really are the show, if you know what I mean?
It's because they get it. They understand that we want something more than the same crap we've seen and heard about for so many decades already. And they're like, all right, let's do something a little more different. Let's get eerie and creepy, but let's do it in our own style, you know?
And if we want to talk about that middle ground where it's like a little bit independent and almost mainstream, there's a film called The Babadook. Has anyone seen that?
I'm not a fan of it.
As in you didn't like it, or what's up? That is also in my top 5, like best horror film.
I did not like The Babadook.
Okay.
You know what movie I did like? What's it called? The Boy.
I did not like that at all.
Ha! See, look at that. There we go.
Oh, for the people who have not seen those, give us a little gist of what it was.
The Boy is
both of them.
Okay, so the boy is this family hires a babysitter to take care of a boy. It turns out that the boy is a doll. A life-size.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
A life-size doll of a boy.
And so basically they want her to watch over the doll, treat it like it's an actual child, and she's like, yeah, whatever. And then little does she know, there's a lot of weird crap going on in the house that maybe, just maybe, the doll is more than just a doll, and that's the synopsis.
Is that the one that was like it was moving around and stuff? Like
No,
that...
you have to watch it. I can't.
And I don't mean on its own. Like,
we cannot go that much into it.
Of the doll.
Yeah, we can't go into
I think I know which one you're talking about, though.
And for the Babadook, the Babadook is just a story about the boogeyman. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Watch.
Yeah, the Babadook, I knew that it was supposed to be based off of just that story.
I didn't know.
It's a book.
I like how I type in "the" in Google, and the first thing that comes up is the Babadook. It's just "the." I didn't type anything else in, just "the," and it comes up. It's great.
Yeah, but the doll, the boy, I like that one. Horror films of this decade, currently that I it's really like very low, but it was the boy.
If that's the same one I'm thinking of, I personally thought it was alright. Like towards the beginning, it got you all hyped up.
Under the Skin.
And then for me, the end didn't do it.
Watch Under the Skin.
The ending is hit or miss. That's one of the things.
For like, what?
If the boy.
Oh. The ending was the only thing I liked.
Well said.
Oh boy, I feel like I'm the outcast now.
Did you like it because it ended?
No, I liked it because there was a twist in the movie.
It was a really good twist. Yes.
It was a good twist, but we saw it from a mile away. But it doesn't matter. It was still a pretty good twist.
That's why I don't like it. Sometimes I see a twist coming and I'm like, nah. I knew it was coming. It wasn't that great.
Yeah.
If I can sense it coming, nah, no, you know I can't even say that. I sense almost all movie endings. I can't even say that.
Yeah. But moving back,
I sensed it.
It was the boy. You're next. And if I'm correct, it did come out in the 2010s. Grave Encounters. Oh, Tark hasn't seen it.
No. I have seen it. I'm just trying to see. Was it the 2010s? I have seen it.
That one's a paranormal one. Yes.
I think that was. I think that was the 2010s.
Grave Encounters, and I did like that movie. It's a found footage paranormal film. It was why I enjoyed it. It was actually pretty unique with the found footage itself. If you like paranormal movies, I recommend it. If you like found footage movies, I also recommend it. I thought it was very good. And then there was another one. I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm going to remember it.
Under the Skin.
And Under the Skin. I didn't really like Under the Skin. You loved it. Okay, I understand you loved it, but I wouldn't say I enjoyed it as much as you did. I enjoyed it because I'm not gonna even say it. How about that?
All right.
Well, it was pretty good. It was all right. I thought it was all right. No, I think those are the only ones that I'm seriously thinking right now. And oh no, there is one, and it's an Antonio Banderas movie. Let me think about it. It's a Spanish one. It's Antonio Banderas though, and I don't remember its name because it's in Spanish, but it translates to "In My Skin" or something.
Under the Skin.
No, it's not Under the Skin. Okay, it's not Scarlett.
Know.
It's not Scarlett Johansson. It's I want to describe it, but I don't want to get too deep into it because it's a very complex movie, but it was really good, and it was very, very. If I remember it,
Dusk Till Dawn.
It's not From Dusk Till Dawn.
No, From Dusk Till Dawn was Tarantino.
Someone brought up.
But anyway, going back to slasher films, if we were to think about slasher films of this current decade, or let's just say in the last, 20 years, the last 2 decades, I think the only one of the memorable ones would be something like Haute Tension, which is the French film by Alexandre Alla, High Tension.
Yeah, I
Yes,
know
High
which one you're talking
Tension.
about.
Another one would be Hatchet. Another one would be Wrong Turn. Another one would be The Strangers. And then if we were to count something like of this decade, we would think of Maniac, for example. Like that one was very good. And so if we were to
You
think
do
of
you do
what
know
was that?
Maniac's a remake, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, okay, just
And it was very good. I still enjoyed it. That
But
was another one.
it's still a modern take on the film.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
and these are what slashers are turning into nowadays. It's not all those like classics, like Michael Myers and Freddy
It's more
Krueger and Jason Voorhees. They're turning into like those classics, similar to like when we think of horror movie classics nowadays, we think of Dracula or the Frankenstein monster or the Wolfman or the Mummy and so on and so forth. To me, it feels like this is what these classic slasher characters are turning into almost, because we are in favor, well, when I mean we, I mean the general audience nowadays, we are in favor of something else, something completely different, something that is, not related to the slasher genre at all, something that is more suited for, general scares and not something where it's going to go back to like that classic thing. But usually when it does go back to that classic thing, we love it in a way, but not all of them are good. And so the reason why these other slasher films nowadays that are released, I'm not going to lie, these slasher films that are released nowadays, I personally like them, but not a lot of people do. And they do not really get that mainstream appeal or that popularity that you would think they would have, because even though it's supposed to be geared towards, us, our generation, people that grew up watching these slasher films and all that, it doesn't really get all that attention and all that. But why is that? Personally, for me, I think for two reasons. One, it could be that a lot of people are now gearing towards what they perceive is horror nowadays. I think a lot of people are thinking that they've seen it all. There's nothing that we haven't seen yet, and we want to have that paranormal stuff. We want to have all those jump scare galore and all that other stuff. That is something that we want. And ultimately, I think that is what Hollywood is believing that we are craving for. And so we get constant releases of all that stuff and we pay to go see it. I mean, no matter how bad a horror movie is, a lot of people are going to go, especially teenagers, are going to go out to the cinemas and watch it with their buddies. Annabelle was such a terrible film, but it made so much money at the box office. How is that?
It did exactly what they wanted. It scared people by surprising them, and the only way that a lot of people are surprised now is with jump scares, and that's enough for a lot of people. So and once people are like, yeah, it scared me a lot. Like, there's a lot of times where I find myself jumping or screaming or getting scared. And then because other people hear that, they're thinking, oh, this has got to be a terrifying movie. They go to watch it, and they're like, okay, I got scared a lot. It's not something like when you walk out the theater, that fear doesn't follow you or anything like that.
Yeah, like the original horror movies that we've seen before, where it's like, that's something that you live with basically for the rest of your life, as weird as that sounds. You think about it, you're like, oh, that was so creepy. That movie still haunts me to this day.
And for some people, it's like literally after watching some movies for days, weeks, and stuff like that. There's people who are just like, yeah, now I'm constantly looking over my shoulder after watching those movies.
And back then, that's what it was about, and now this is what we're looking for again.
Now we're just like, okay, what can scare you if it suddenly appears on the screen? On this,
yeah, we're just getting the jump scares instead of something that follows us forever.
And it's usually something just horrifying but still humanoid. Like, don't get me wrong, some of the horror films that I've seen, as per my friend's recommendation, have been exactly that, where it's just like mostly jump scares, or just like a good portion of it is jump scares. But there's also portions of it where I'm just like, oh man, this is like really messing with me. Because there'll be stuff that's really creepy or eerie that happens, and then it gets explained later on. The only real example I can think of would be in the second Insidious movie that I saw with my friend. But,
like for example, for me, I don't know if you guys have played it, Outlast. Lady Stark smiling. No, it's not jump scares galore. It's the atmosphere of the game itself that makes the game terrifying. You're in an asylum. Boom.
Okay, I think I've seen you play this one.
You have. And it was just You're in an asylum. Boom. What does that mean? Oh my gosh, you're in an asylum. Crazy people. That's already a bad place to be at to begin with, right? Then you have people escape from the asylum, running over, like they took the control of the asylum. Boom. The atmosphere is scary. Then you have Big Chris Walker, some grisly-looking, savage-looking guy coming after you, trying to hurt you and kill you. There goes your killer, right? And then you have your cultists, the freaking the cult people. Then you have the scientist who wants to do stuff, and then you have a whole bunch of other stuff. That is terror. That is hard. The whole atmosphere itself. See, those are the things that I enjoyed of horror. Even in the slasher films, the whole atmosphere of those movies, like, oh snap, this character's in a dream. This is not good. You know what happens when you're in a dream. Freddy's gonna come. Or you're in Lake, what's the name? Lake, what's the name of the lake? Crystal Lake. You're in Crystal Lake where Jason drowned. You're in trouble. You know you're not gonna survive, right? Right? Where else?
Suburban neighborhood. If you go into a suburban neighborhood, Michael Myers is gonna come and get you.
So it's the atmosphere, and it's just. Lucen, are you muted?
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
I was saying some creepy, secluded place that is dark usually is where all that takes place, regardless.
It's just again, it's the atmosphere itself that the movie builds up, and it's like the jump scares don't help you. First of all, they build up the atmosphere, but it's not the atmosphere that in those movies the atmosphere helps a lot, but you don't get the jump scares as you would in like. What was that one movie that I saw that had so many jump scares? It was just recently.
The Woman in Black, Sinister 2. Sinister 2 had a lot.
Terrible, and it was just like, why do you have to put all these jump scares in a movie? It doesn't help it at all. Like, and it's obvious that there's gonna happen. It's like, oh, it's gonna be a jump scare.
You see, the thing is, you're gonna have to look forward to jump scares basically for the rest of your life now, because right now, jump scares are trendy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but
sometimes they put them there and they don't even need them. Like, the movie's good. They don't even need any of the jump scares.
Like, see, again, for me, you're bringing back the horror, like the horror characters, the classic ones, and I know why they're doing it. It's a selling point for them, and it sucks because, like, how much longer are you gonna juice these characters out? Like, that's, to me, that's what they're doing. They're juicing them out. They're bringing them back just to take out more money from people. You can completely make a new character, someone completely different, and try and make that person or that character the new thing. Like when Saw came out, everyone loved Jigsaw when he first appeared. I loved Jigsaw. I thought the whole concept of the clown in a bicycle was pretty cool. I was like, that's really. What was it then?
It was a freaking puppet.
Okay, well, it was a puppet clown.
No, it wasn't even a clown. No, it wasn't.
It was a puppet that looked like a clown.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
You're not winning this conversation, Tark. That's fine.
Let's just say that.
It was a puppet clown, right? Everyone liked it. It was like, oh, that's creepy. Look at that. That's pretty cool.
To me, it wasn't
right?
creepy. It was weird, but.
I thought it was like, oh, look at that. That's pretty unique. And when that happened, it was just, everyone wanted to do something like that, and I understand horror movies. It's always about the trends. It's true. Whatever sells, that's what people are gonna tend to, and but I can't say I have to give up on the slasher genre, because slasher genre itself is the most, in my opinion, the most entertaining form of horror. True or false?
Yes and no. It all depends what's going on.
Goth Angel? Goth
I
Angel?
like the thrill of slashers because to me, like if it wasn't okay, like after the Jason and Michael Myers movies and Freddy, of course, the ones that aren't typical, like oh, yeah, exactly, we know this guy is the guy, obviously, because he's the only guy doing it. Besides the okay, we already know who the killer is thing, the slashers that are more modern these days, where it's like, okay, who's the person? That's interesting to me. Trying to figure out who could have possibly killed all of these people. To me, that's the most interesting part about slashers these days.
In when it comes to those kind of movies, I usually feel like those are more towards the psychological end as to the who or the why or the how and stuff like that. Yeah.
I feel like there's always a psychological aspect to these slasher films, regardless. Though everyone had their reasons, their motives, everything.
It's always entertaining though to have those kind of movies, but those I don't watch for like. To me, there's no horror to them. It's more like I need to know what happens. It's like it's making me crazy. I need to watch how this ends because I need to know how or why or what.
Well, yeah, if you're watching slashers for the horror, then you're watching it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, if those questions don't get answered, I will tell you it is a terrible movie, and that has happened so many times where I'm just like, all right, I don't like this movie. It left me with a question. I'm going away now.
I mean, unless they already plan to make another one in the making, then I don't understand when movies do leave you on a cliffhanger.
No, I understand.
But this is for different kinds of movies. You gotta understand the way I view those kinds of movies is okay. If like your main thing is these like 3 big questions, and then you only answer 2 out of the 3 questions, I'm gonna be pretty annoyed.
It's when they leave the story like open-ended to a point where like this is something that should have been answered within this first movie.
I know where Brandon's going though because I've seen a couple of the B films that are like, why did you do this? Like the B films are always the worst slashers in my opinion. like Slumber Party Massacre. Like there's like a whole bunch of there's like 3 of those and it's just like why? And like Tark said, Urban Legends. I saw the first one and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then like they came out with like 4 more and I'm just like, why?
I thought originally it was an interesting concept, but you could tell that it was only made after certain movies were made.
Like Scream.
Exactly. You could tell that they were competing. You could see it.
I mean, yeah,
so obvious.
Yeah, but again, like it's just a lack of originality, a lack of it's just. But I mean, what I don't like. This is what I've kept saying. I just don't like them rehashing the same characters and milking the stories out. Make a new one. Try and at least get some originality. Get something like new out. Go get something to drink then.
Sometimes they don't make the main characters a little more like dimensional, you know?
Right now, our generation is coming down.
They're generic main characters.
Yeah, right now our generation is coming down to like either what AJ was saying, where they rehash stuff, so like reboots and sequels, where the sequels are a lot like reboots, where they're just like doing the same thing, but like tweaking the story or something like that. That's
like for example, it's not a horror, but Star Wars just like came out with a movie last year, right? They're all completely new characters. Kylo Ren is not Darth Vader, but Kylo Ren is himself unique and he has something different, and it's cool to see that. Finn and Rey, they're not Han and Luke. They're their own characters and they are really, really unique. And that's why when the new... Look at Tark looking at some... That's why when the new Star Wars comes out, I'm not going to watch it just because it's Star Wars. It's already because I've connected with the new characters. You know? Tark with his facial expressions. Tark, don't lie. Don't lie.
Tark versus AJ, go.
Their new characters are unique. You gotta admit.
Yeah, that was me joking. That was me just
so like I'm saying, you can do that to imagine Star Wars, which has been around for like 40 or maybe even more, 50 years? Target's looking at me like...
Get you on that.
You don't know? It's 40 years,
I know
bro. 40
exactly.
years next year.
40 years, guys. So Star Wars can bring new characters that you can connect with. 40 years from when it was released. How can people that have enjoyed the horror genre can't come up with a simple concept? Let's make a new character. Let's take everything that's terrifying in this world, because that's what the slasher farmer.
The thing is, though, these are not characters you connect with. Like, if you want to connect with somebody, you can make a character you can connect with. If you want to make something you can fear, then how do you make something you can perpetually fear? How do you make something that transcends fear to a point where it doesn't matter what lifetime you live in, it's something that should be feared?
Dude, I mean, they did it with Pinhead. Can you imagine when Pinhead first came out? Who would have thought that was going to be such a terrifying character? But they did it. And Pinhead's one of the most famous horror characters there is.
He is, but he wasn't my favorite out of the Chinobites. Just saying.
No, yeah. but Pinhead is, you know, or even to gaming, Pyramid Head.
Yes, there we go.
Pyramid Head, Nemesis.
And I was hoping we would jump into this.
Nemesis.
Oh,
right.
Well, if you want to dive in there,
we can definitely dive in there
real quick.
Albert Wesker, like all these characters you feared, right? They brought something new. Chris Walker from Outlast. If you've played Outlast, like, he was a memorable character. We can dive into the horror genre in video games. Like, there are, again, you can be creative. You can make something different. It's just a matter of, are you willing to?
Well, they need a team of new, fresh brains, okay?
Have you guys ever played Amnesia?
Yes.
The Dark Descent?
Yes.
Yes.
Alright, that would be a good example of something that's like, it would be a sense of fear that would transcend generations, because no matter what, you'd be terrified of something you cannot stop, that follows you, and that all you can do is hide from it to avoid it.
I get what you're saying. No, I mean, again, you can, there's, like, for example, I don't know if you guys ever played Dead by Daylight, or have you ever seen Dead by Daylight?
I've seen it played.
Okay, so the game is pretty much, there's 4 survivors in an area, right? And they have to get out of that area, right? While there's a killer. Technically, there's one with a machete going around slashing people. That's a slasher. There's others that are like, they have like other different powers that go around killing people, right? It's a game. It's, if you guys haven't played it, if you have a PC, check it out. It looks really fun, and I want a PC just to play it. That's how badly I want a PC. But the villains, the killers, the antagonists in that game, they're all unique, and it's like, wow, you can tell that they have their influences. They have influences of one's obviously, you know, Jason. The other one is like obviously another character, but they all have their influences, and they're you can tell that they also have their differences. In that sense, you know, they're rehashing, again, I said it, they're rehashing Friday the 13th. They're making a movie, but before the movie comes out, they're gonna make a game. You guys.
Wow, so much emphasis on the game.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my god.
The game. And I've seen the gameplay.
You need to know it's a game.
It's a game.
It's a game, AJ? Jeez.
Now, just remember, there was actually a Friday the 13th game back in the NES
Yeah, I
days.
played it. I played it.
It's all same with Nightmare on Elm Street.
Street, and
Oh,
there
man,
was
what's
a
that
Halloween
movie game? The really good slasher movie game.
I was gonna say it, Splatterhouse.
I think that was it. Oh,
Are you gonna say Indigo Prophecy?
No, Splatterhouse. Have you ever played Splatterhouse on the Sega?
Yeah, I did. I didn't like it all that much.
Oh,
Oh
come
no, I'm
on.
talking about the new one, the recent one.
Evil Within?
No. It was
That's
literally either you're playing the teenagers or you're playing the slasher.
Dead by Daylight.
Is it Dead by
That's
Daylight?
Daylight. Yeah.
Dead by Daylight.
Dead by
about
Daylight,
the
and
newest-
then we're gonna get Friday the 13th. But if you guys ever played,
Yeah, it was Dead by Daylight. Okay.
if you guys
Yeah.
ever played a game played a game called Indigo Prophecy, that is the exact same thing of a slasher, because that is like a slasher film in general, where we're playing a mystery. It's a mystery, but then there will be times when there's going to be a killer holding an axe that is chasing after you, and if you get trapped in a room, you have to find a hiding spot, and the places where the killer is going to search to hide is always randomized and all that, depending on, you know, how injured you are, how much noise you're making, and where you decide to hide. And so just looking at a scene like that in a video game, it just goes to show you how much the slasher trope has also just dived into the gaming world. And look at how popular Dead by Daylight is right now. That
Very
is
popular.
Oh man, and that is like a slasher on its own, because let's be honest, every single killer, with the exception of a few, they're using some sort of sharp weapon to get after these kids, and all the main characters are kids, with the exception of one. And then we have this situation where these kids are trying to survive the night and trying to escape the hands of this ruthless monster killer.
Yeah.
And then we have Friday the 13th, that's coming out, which I'm hoping all of us would get, by the way. And that one is going to be the exact same thing, almost, except it's going to be a pure slasher because, well, one, it's Friday the 13th, two, it's using a slasher character, and three, just the animation of it's going to have its own like kill animations and all that stuff, and it's going to be an homage to like classic horror. And it just goes to show you how much, if you think slasher right now, when it comes to horror movies, it's the independent scene that is going on that is, you know, taking away all the spotlight, but not many people know about it all that much. It's almost on a similar level to video games as well, because usually when people play horror video games, what are the popular horror video games now? We have Amnesia, we have Outlast, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. It's all these first-person ones, and the ones that are really more focused on jump scares, but in a good way, jump scares and atmosphere, when all the classic slasher stuff is usually more towards gameplay than actual scares, which will be through scares from gameplay, if you know what I mean. And so
It's
I
that
personally...
rising tension of constantly trying to avoid somebody
Yes.
or hiding away from
So
somebody.
that's the fear. The fear doesn't come from the cutscenes or anything like that. It comes from the actual gameplay itself. And I personally find, once again, that's not as mainstream as something like Five Nights at Freddy's and all that. And it just goes to show you that, once again, this independent, you know, area is something unique, and it's something that is still special, but it doesn't get all that mainstream attention as Outlast or FNAF or anything like that, you know?
Okay, so I'm watching a list of what slasher films have come out in the 2010s. I don't know why, but Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yeah.
What?
Don't listen to that.
Have you guys seen that movie?
I don't. Yeah, I have, but I don't know why that's on that list. So
It's a
don't listen to
slasher
it.
parody.
Yeah, don't listen to that list.
It's great though. That
It is
movie's
hilarious.
awesome.
It is an amazing movie. It is
Whoever-
absolutely amazing, but for
if
all
you
the
have-
wrong reasons.
If you have not seen that film, please do so.
Goth
It's
needs to
great.
see that film at some
What?
point. in time, because
Oh.
it's hilarious.
What's
And-
so
It's Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Have you seen
Yeah.
Zombieland? It's basically like that.
It's
Yeah.
Zombieland for slasher movies.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It's so funny. It's just it's so comedic. But yes, one of the movies that I did see on the list, I recommend, is called Lessons of Evil. It's a Korean film. All right, did I get that right? Let me see.
Oh boy.
And it's a Korean film, and it's a teacher that ends up it's a teacher that ends up lesson of the evil. That's what it's called, and it's a teacher that ends up finding a way to punish all the bullies that did harm to one student in his class. And watch it. It's Korean. If you're into that, Goth Angel loves Korean drama, so I hope she does. But the assumptions, no, it's not the assumptions. I know
she's an assumption, but
what, that she likes Korean dramas?
No, that she'll like it because she likes Korean dramas.
That I like it because it's Korean, basically.
It's Korean, that's why. Yeah, that is an assumption, but it's actually really good. I remember watching that and I was like, oh yeah.
No, it does sound interesting. No, I'll admit.
So again, there's plenty of good slasher films right now. Yes, I agree. The Hatchet series. I thought the Hatchet series was unique. The second one I enjoyed a lot. I thought the second one was much better than the first one. And if you guys haven't seen the Hatchet series, I recommend targeting it. Target's like give that a watch. Tark also likes the Suska twins, who actually did a slasher film.
American Mary. Dead hooker in a trunk? You would say dead hooker in a trunk, aren't you?
No, there was one that Kane was in.
Oh, that one? Yeah, I didn't really like that one, though.
Yeah, but it's still a slasher film. There's also another one that I didn't actually think it was a slasher film, but it actually is. The Collection.
Oh, yeah. The Collection and the Collector. Well, the Collector, but the Collection, yes.
The Collection.
Yes, the Collection was a slasher. The Collector, not so much.
Yeah,
I get to see them confused because of their names.
Yeah, the Collection was the one. The Collector came out first, and then the Collection came out afterwards.
Yes, and they were both good. I liked them both.
They were both good, yes. And I just realized that was actually a thing, and I was like, wow, this is real. And there's plenty. There are plenty. Like Scream 4 came out this decade.
Oh yeah, that's right.
No.
What was that?
So we don't count.
We don't count that one. No.
No one talks.
Actually, if Tark says there was a remake of Old Boy, then Scream 4 counts.
Yeah.
I mean, would you count the American version as a remake?
I wouldn't say it's a remake if it's American.
It's more like just a translation. I feel like it's more like a translation.
It was completely different though. It was a reimagining.
Like it's just like there we go, a reimagining or something like that. Like it's more like a translation from one culture to another.
Basically, the English version.
Yeah,
or the Americanized version.
The way I see it,
but it wasn't really the English version because there was so many deep changes into the movie that there was a lot taken out. There was a lot that was added in, and for me, like Old Boy again, is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love Old Boy, and just one of those movies that I sat down, watched, was overwhelmed with, and watched it again just to like catch everything, and I can still watch it every year without having an issue. I can't do that with the American version. I just like, again, the culture, the Korean culture is much different than the American culture. So everything that they put emphasis on, if the American culture tried to put emphasis on it, it would come out to be awkward.
No, I get what you're trying to say. It's like that for a lot of things. Like some of my favorite series, I know will probably never get translated because they're mostly just cultural references and stuff like that, or local references.
Yeah. So again, it's just one of those things that, like Old Boy was just one of my favorites. But there's a lot of movies that, again, there are slasher films that have come out this decade. They're not mainstream. They're not mainstream. If you check Netflix, Hush is one that Hush is a good one. I liked Hush. Not because Not because of it, because it was a slasher, but there was more to it than just any slasher film, especially with the girl being deaf. She was deaf.
Are you glad you brought up the idea that
Anyways, I think we should wrap up.
So, to wrap it up, let's end it with one more question about with the new Friday the 13th movie that is coming out, and the new the new Nightmare on Elm Street reboot that is also coming out, and this new Halloween that is coming out with John Carpenter that is working on. So in other words, all these iconic horror characters and these horror films that we know of and that are considered all-time classics and all that, now that they're all going to be remade, last question, do you think that the slasher genre actually there's a future for, or is
Hold
it
on, I didn't even know that was John Carpenter's making a new Halloween.
We will get into that later.
Holy crap.
But anyway, so with all that said, do you think that there is a future for the horror genre in terms of the slasher genre?
But it would have to be picked up. See, that's the whole situation. They would have to be.
The thing is, for me, I feel like there's always potential for a new creator, even an old creator, to come out and make something new and something interesting and unique, something that we will generally all enjoy. But I think it'll take time. So maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll receive something new that's really good that we all like.
A new icon or something like that.
Yeah, something new that comes out that's iconic.
It'll definitely come out within the next 5 years.
I think we're definitely going in the right direction. Once you know, like directors and developers and everything, once they get over the whole, oh my god, special effects are fun, let's use it everywhere crap, I think they'll slow down, they'll settle down and go, okay, we need to put some new meaning into a slasher film, we need to put some more creativity in this section, you know, stuff like that. I don't think that we're the only ones here who are yearning for something new that is a slasher. Therefore, I believe that there's something new will come out pretty soon.
See, like, I know there's a lot of people that have influences on those slasher films. For example, like, Wes Craven definitely influenced a lot of, like, directors and, like, writers to touch upon these things. Like, there was one director, he did like a short film. I'm trying to remember who it was. He did a short film on ABCs of Death, and he's English, and he did the one short in ABCs of Death that actually surprised me the most, and that was in the second one. I want to touch upon it a little bit, and it was a home intrusion.
We can always talk about that either another time or something like that, because I mean we are going like really, really far over our normal limit.
All right, so the director said that his main influence was Wes Craven, and that Wes Craven is one of the main reasons why he wanted to do horror films, especially horror films. And there are a lot of people that, you know, that have a lot of these influences from not only Wes Craven but John Carpenter, and, you know, people who have done the horror film genre itself. And it's just, again, it just takes one person to just come up with a concept. Okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make the character like that. You know, Texas Chainsaw didn't happen in an accident. Someone, you know, read the story of Ed Gein, and there was like, you could do this and then add the whole family as well, and like the cannibalistic family, along with this big guy to wield the chainsaw and go around killing people. You know, all of that, you can, there's someone out there, but just rehashing the same characters again, it tires out the genre, and that's why the genre itself is lacking, because it's to me, it's controlled by the same characters. You either get a Jason or a Freddy or a Michael Myers or a Chucky movie. You're never getting someone new. And that's because these characters have dominated that genre itself. If you can come up with a new character, if you can start making completely different characters, I guess like when Scream came out, it was because everyone, like Tark said, they were getting tired of the same characters over and over and over. Scream added something different. But after Scream, what else has there been? That's the problem. We're lacking we're lacking characters, and we're lacking,
There's only so many unique characters. What's it called? Yeah, there's only so many unique characters you can really do before after a while it's just like, okay, well, how is this all that different from that character? Like, for some people, they can't really see too huge a difference between Mike Myers and Jason.
Yeah, exactly. People compare them a lot.
Not you, Tark.
Believe it or not.
Not you, Tark. I'm talking about, like, just general audiences.
Yeah, I get you, because there's, like, this general audience. When I was younger and I saw it, too, a lot of people just thought, oh, it's just some guy in a freaking mask.
And they did the same thing for both of those movies. Like, oh, it's a guy in a mask with a knife slashing people up. And that was to them, their, no offense to those people, their simple minds, that's exactly how they just decided to judge these movies. It was just that simple. It was that straightforward. It was two people running around, knives, masks, stabbing other people for no apparent reason. That was the way they saw those movies. And for a lot of people going further, when they start breaking down characters, they'll start saying, well, how is this character really all that different from that character? Do you have, let's say, 3 points of differences between these two characters? Are they really that different or something like that,
Again, it's just, it all depends on who's willing to take up the challenge of creating a new character.
But
and hopefully
someone will, sooner or later. Hopefully
we do, because again, that's what the genre is lacking. The genre itself is lacking someone to go out and make a character.
We'll do it. We can do it. We can make the horror movie. We can do it.
Like I said, though, I think with this re-ramp, it will spark some inspiration, in my opinion.
I hope so.
Some inspiration, and I think I hope that it will, because I do want to see something new, something a little different,
I hope so, because we definitely do need. I love the genre itself, and I don't want to see it just.
Neither do I.
I don't think it'll ever permanently die out, though.
No, it won't die, because first of all, you still have the indie people doing the movies. You have a lot of independent films that are being made that are slasher films, but I would like to see more mainstream slasher
I think
films.
some of these remakes are actually trying to promote that genre of movies not dying out as well. They're trying to bring it back, in a sense, even if it's a newer sense, more modernized. They're still trying to bring it back.
Yeah.
Like, it's I just, again, that's my opinion. I hope the genre itself grows as well in the video game community, because Dead by Daylight is very, very, very popular. I want a console version of Dead by Daylight, because I don't have a PC right now. Rip me. But who knows, like, if we get those type of games on console, just more like that, it's usually the indie people that do it. Like, I want to see it more mainstream. That's just me. Oh.
Any last thoughts, AJ?
AJ presents Animes of the Week. And since we're talking about slashers, I'm gonna just throw one out. It's both dubbed and subbed. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called Assassination Classroom. Check it out.
Oh my god.
So, with that said, we are Too Geeky to Care. Thank you all for stopping by. You guys have been awesome, and we will be doing this next week, right? Right?
Hopefully.
Right.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Assuming all goes well, this will happen again next week. If you guys would like to watch more of this and engage more into the conversation and things like that, you could always follow, subscribe, whatever the case might be. We have social network links down there. Or if you want to watch from the beginning or watch some of the older content,
You can buy my ticket tomorrow?
Post it straight to YouTube. At some point in time, I have to edit the description and stuff like that because it's just like a one-line description for all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we have all that stuff down there. And
again,
we'll be doing this next week, the same afternoon frame of time because it generally jumps around in hours.
Yeah,
So start.
So usually we would be available around 7 o'clock to 7:30 Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock to 8:30 Eastern. So yeah, somewhere around that time we will be back, hopefully next weekend, and we'll be talking about something else that will be also exciting and too geeky to care as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys are just awesome. Thank you guys so much for the talk. And once again, if you want to talk more about any of the stuff that we talked about today, or if you want to talk about anything, you can follow us we're all on Twitch and we're all available on Discord and such, and so give us a follow or give this channel a follow and all that, and we will be back to talk more about other things in general. So thank you guys so much for talking about horror and slasher stuff in general, because yeah, we love this talk, and so thank you guys so much.
Indeed.
Oh, can we also say Zaz from Arkham Asylum was a slasher?
Oh.
So we'll throw that out.
Good to know.
Cool.
Anyways,
all right,
bye,
thank
everybody.
you guys so much. You guys have a great and wonderful evening, and hope to catch you guys again soon. Thank you.
Peace.